Emphasis in art is one of several principles of art, which are utilized alongside the elements of art. The latter is described as your visual tools. They comprise color, form, line, shape, space, texture, and value. It is important to not be confused with the elements and principles of art, the latter of which use the elements to create a unified composition. That brings us to the question, what is emphasis in art? This principle refers to how various elements are applied to draw the viewer's attention to a specific focal point. Usually, there is only one focal point, but there can be several in a composition, as we will see as art examples. Sometimes a painting or drawing is a story. All good stories have a hero or, at least, a main character. Visual art can have a main character too. The main character does not have to be a person. An object or area within the composition serves as the main character in an artwork. In a story, the main character, sometimes referred to as the protagonist, is not hard to identify. In a book, the protagonist usually has the most dialogue, while in a movie, the most screen time. However, there is no dialogue in a painting and every pictorial element gets the same amount of screen time, or rather, canvas time. Emphasis is the principle of art that helps the audience put the story of a painting together in their own minds. Any object or area of emphasis is called a focal point. The focal point is meant to be the part of an artwork to which the viewer's eyes are first attracted. Artworks can have multiple focal points. The degree to which the focal points stand out determines the order in which the viewer notices them. There are different ways to create emphasis. First is the contrast. Take a look at the image of tomatoes at the left. The green tomato is mixed into the red tomatoes but does not get lost in the group. It is clearly the focal point because of a strong contrast of color. There are three elements of art useful in creating emphasis through contrast. First is the color, value, and finally texture. How color creates emphasis. Bright color is usually attractive. Road signs and traffic lights are brightly colored for a reason, to get our attention. There are three specific ways you can use contrast to add emphasis in your own art. Complementary colors are arranged across from one another on the color wheel. They are far apart. Complements are as different in hue as possible. Examples include red, green, blue, orange, and yellow, violet. Isolated color is a color found spot in a composition. An object with isolated color stands out because it does not harmonize with the rest of the color palette. Since this color is only found in one location, it draws our eyes to it. Finally, the absent color, which is similar to isolated color but more severe color note in an otherwise colorless artwork, draws our eyes to it. There will be no doubt in the audience's mind what the artist means to emphasize if only one object is in color. There are more ways to create emphasis. We have isolation. Isolation is a straightforward way to ensure the main character of a picture is noticed. Place an object of emphasis outside of a grouping and you will force your audience to take notice of it. Another is location. Using a bull's eye as an example, the location of a compositional element contributes to our feelings about emphasis as well. The bull's eye on a dartboard is in the center for good reason. All things being equal, a viewer will look at the center of a composition first. Placing important objects or people near the center of a canvas will add to their emphasis. A word of caution: important objects should be placed near, but not directly in the center. If your focal point is in the exact center of a composition, you will greatly de-emphasize everything else in the composition such that the viewer may not consider the entirety of the image. We have also convergence. Lines and edges can work like arrows to indicate a focal point. Not only obvious lines work but implied lines, invisible lines, as well. For example, the direction of a person's gaze can indicate to the audience where to look next. Try it yourself. In the drawing, the architectural features point towards, or converge, at the small figure in the road. Additionally, the figure is located near the center of the composition to help the audience find him. Another way to create emphasis in art is by creating the unusual. A fun way to create emphasis in a composition is to have one element stand out because it is so different. A round object among square shapes, a line of people with one facing the wrong way. Think of it as the twist at the end of a movie. If you are changing expects to something unexpected, then you will create a striking point of emphasis. Look at the line of people in the illustration. See how the person with the head of a fly just pops out and demands your attention. Lastly is the level of rendering. In reality, any one thing is as undeniably real as any other thing. People, trees, cars and buildings all share the same level of existence, the same completeness. In a painting or drawing, however, the artist decides the degree to which various pictorial elements are rendered. Think of it as finished versus unfinished or tight versus loose. A sharp, clear area in an otherwise loose composition acts as a focal point. From the examples of emphasis in art, it is an important principle of art that, without it, we would be staring at a meaningless composition. Utilizing the diversity of tools at our disposal, and strategically applying these, we, as artists, can create meaningful and awe-inspiring artworks. Additionally, understanding how emphasis in art works, we are also better equipped to analyze all the important paintings and sculptures from throughout the ages, which will ultimately refine their meaning for us. Therefore, by understanding emphasis, we can speak the language of meaning in art.